What makes a truly great villain? And I do mean villain. Not just an antagonist that is simply an obstacle for our hero, but someone truly evil. Is it the scope of their power, the way they present themselves and the actions they take, or an air of mystery that keeps the audience wondering? For me, a great villain needs to only accomplish a few things. For one, they need to instill a sense of fear, hatred, or both in the audience, while having a justifiable reason behind their demeanor. They need to be a legitimate threat to our hero, whether it be by sheer skill or their tactics. And finally, they need to be defeated in a satisfying manner. A villain's fall is just as important as their rise. All of these are generally broad concepts, and many villains in media do feature these traits. The resulting product, however, relies heavily on execution. Majin Buu was such a failure. The character of focus for this video embodies all the traits I look for in a great villain, and is a personal favorite. He is the main antagonist of Hajime no Ippo Rising, the Owari Dragon himself, Sawamura Ryuhei. The character of Sawamura is rather interesting. He's introduced to the protagonist, Makunouchi Ippo, by a mutual friend, Sendou Takeshi. Immediately upon his introduction, he comes off as this intimidating and mysterious figure. Take note of the shadows and the deadpan stare. Ippo, Japan's current featherweight champion, feels immediate tension and fear of this man. The scene presented in the anime does have some unfitting music, but regardless, you can't help but get a strange vibe from this character. He's confident he will crush Ippo, including his signature move, the Dempsey Roll. He then takes his leave after making his declaration. This sets a very uneasy tone for the character because we want to know more about him. You can't make a bold claim about defeating the so far undefeatable Dempsey Roll. Ippo has won all of his matches ever since learning the damn thing. And the last match, well, the last opponent claimed he could do it too, but his answer was taking it on the chin, which was kinda stupid. However, with Sawamura, you felt like he might be the one to overcome this powerful finishing move, since people are getting closer and closer incrementally to figuring out the weakness of the Dempsey Roll. Plus, Sawamura's criticizing of Sendou's fighting style would act as a foreshadowing to his keen eye for detail. Oh god, another series that will never end. Get the fuck out of here. Our antagonist establishes his presence on his own. Now Sendou is here to fill in the blanks, being the one to uptalk him. You see this a lot in anime, especially in Dragon Ball, where a character is touted for their skill and power, but it isn't until the fight starts where you get to see them actually strut their stuff. Sawamura is different, because we get to see his power and attitude in glimpses, which gives this extremely powerful aura about him. We see him demolish Ippo's last opponent with a unique, counter-heavy style of boxing never seen before. One that punishes your opponent whenever they make even the slightest wrong movement, instead of the counters we're used to seeing by Ippo's boyfriend, Miyata, which allows your opponent to at least throw a punch before being punished. And you cannot convince me otherwise. Ippo does not care for Kumi in the slightest. I've accepted he's gay, and so should you. Sawamura is already shown to be a great villain in the works. He's an incredibly talented boxer with an amazing eye for detail. His style of fighting is considered a natural counter to Ippo, but on top of that, we're shown that Sawamura likes to make his opponent suffer instead of going in for the kill, and he isn't above seriously injuring his opponent. Seriously, how did this guy not get banned? He maimed a guy in the ring on camera. That eyeball exploded. And when asked about why he elbowed his opponent in the eyeball, he just shrugged it off. It's just payback, no big deal. That's the answer of a sociopath. Someone who doesn't care about the safety and well-being of others. So removed from any sense of real emotion. Perfect for a villain. The guy established himself as being uneasy, and now everyone in the cast is feeling it. He has very much instilled a sense of fear and dread, which is what a good villain should do. Now, we as the audience have questions. Is Sawamura going to embarrass Ippo by torturing him in the ring? Or will he end Ippo's career by bashing his head in? The deck is stacked against our hero, and Sawamura has established that he is a legitimate threat to Ippo, both by sheer skill and tactics. And they haven't even fought yet. And if we needed more motivation and a reason to despise the guy even more, damn son, you hit Ippo's kinda sorta maybe not really girlfriend Kumi. It's been 8 years of no romantic advancement. It's gonna end up like Naruto and Hinata, not organic. But yeah, this piece of garbage attacks an innocent woman in broad daylight. We as the audience want this thug to get beaten down. The Sawamura beatdown has to happen. We need this payoff. Before the fated fight starts, we get his backstory, and I think it's important to know why he became the man that he is. People are not typically born evil. They're molded. His backstory is shown to us in a dream. We see that he's responsible for stabbing and possibly killing his abusive father, and that he's soon abandoned by his mother, who was terrified of him. The only people to show him any sense of compassion was his teacher, Kawabe, who got him into boxing to learn discipline and a good work ethic, and Sendou Takeshi. However, all that was achieved was this violent sociopath now has the tools to defend himself and harm others. Our fated fight begins. Will our protagonist come out victorious? Well, it's shonen, so the answer is going to be yes. But let's see how this fight plays out. Ippo starts off strong, but during the early phases, we see Sawamura resorting to foul play while holding up a respectable defense. Ippo snaps several times, begging the question, why is he like this? Why is such a talented boxer such a scumbag? Why can't he fight fair? We as the audience know that answer. We were shown Sawamura's dreams, and it's not Ippo's place to know the villain's backstory. His job is just to win. Ippo, this is your villain, your Ganondorf. Show him what boxing is all about. Once Sawamura takes this fight seriously, the fight's pace is set in his favor, and he proves to all of Japan that he really was the one to defeat the Dempsey role. Not once, but twice. Ippo, however, comes through in the end, like all shonen protagonists, and uses a new technique to stop his momentum to dodge Sawamura's punches and finally land that Dempsey roll at full force, shattering Sawamura's face and bringing the villain down to his knees. The fight is finally over. Ippo defended his title and overcame this seemingly impossible obstacle. Ippo rejoices, and Sawamura is rushed to the hospital. Sawamura's arc concludes with Sendou explaining that Ippo is the type of boxer who brings out the best in a person, and Sawamura is later seen, at least in the manga, taking steps to become a better person. So it's basically like Dragon Ball, beat the villain and make him into a cast member. At least it was great while it lasted. Sawamura Ryuhei is not a good person. He attacks innocent women, thinks himself above everyone and anything, and is absolutely malicious. He instills fear and hatred into his opponents by a combination of factors both inside and outside the ring. He's an extremely talented boxer, but he's not above cheating, and at his core, he's an extremely disturbed individual. Sawamura Ryuhei is a perfect example of an idealized villain, one that is interesting on multiple levels due to a gradual reveal of his personality, plus the rationale for his existence. His backstory is meant to humanize him, but also show why he isn't human. He's a monster of circumstance. You could actually believe Sawamura was a really disturbed kid that would grow up to be a really sadistic adult. After stabbing his abusive father, he was then abandoned by his mother, and the only man to ever care for him tried his hardest to get him on the right track, but instead just gave the man the tools and the ego to become a bigger monster. This dragon had to be slain, and Ippo and his fists answered the call, over and over and over again. He wasn't just some crazy monster like Brian Hawk, who was this smug, loudmouthed street thug that was also magically amazing at boxing. Not saying Brian wasn't a great villain, he ran parallel to Takamura on personality and talent, but contrasted on ethics, so there's that. Plus his comment on spreading his seed to the women of Japan really made you hate him. He was so overtly inhuman and douchey that when the series gave him a quick flashback of him on the streets, it didn't exactly translate to sympathy for the character. He 100% deserved his phobia of Takamura. Look how much fucking blood he lost! When people bring up great villains in media, they typically point to the easiest ones. Frieza, Sephiroth, the Joker, Shape Snatch, but honestly, I would like to add Sawamura Ryuhei to the list. While he's certainly not in the same league in terms of feats and strengths as those other gentlemen, he has this inherent ability to elicit a genuine response from the audience, one that is a combination of fear, hatred, dread, disgust, and a mixed feeling of empathy. He was such an isolated villain as well. You could just watch the episodes that include Sawamura, and you would have a nice, isolated story. We got to have his lore told to us by various characters that only knew pieces about him, and Sawamura revealing his past through a dream was legitimately frightening. His boxing style also reflects his entire being, one that is malicious and concise, and his cannibalistic mannerisms added a layer of horror to his character. Did I mention he's kind of a cannibal? We were meant to fear and hate this guy, and whether or not you sympathize with his backstory, it doesn't matter. What does matter is that he's the villain, and a villain, for the most part, should be defeated in a fitting or satisfying way. And I think it's hard to argue against this beating. Sawamura would later go on to fight Mashiba in the manga, and it's one of the best fights in the entire series, easily top 5 for me. And after suffering a motorcycle accident, he decides to become a coach for future generations of boxers. His character is now just the stoic and deadpan character of the group, and he has dropped his cannibalism references. Seriously, what the fuck was that about? So basically, the TN treatment. And what a shame too. At least we still have Sendou. Thank you so much for watching. This is one of my new series, a Noble Trope. It's where I analyze the writing devices, characters, settings, and all the things that pertain to interesting or awful stories. I've always been interested in storytelling and breaking down the components of why something works or doesn't work. There isn't necessarily a right way to tell a story. It's all a matter of choices, and I want to share why I like or hate some choices over others. Sawamura is one of my favorite villains. He seemed so concise and deadly, and I really wanted him to be my debut episode. If you have a character or media you'd like me to analyze or a specific writing device to make a video on, I'm up for any suggestion. I recalled someone asking me to do a Hajime No Ippo video, and this is what I came up with. So anyway, if you like what you saw, please feel free to like and subscribe, and I do read every comment. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.